Okay, so in the last video, I talked about drawing lips and drawing a mouth in general. So if some of you were chose to draw someone who's smiling and you can see their teeth, you might have figured out that that's a little bit more difficult. But here's what not to do with that. So you don't want to make each individual tooth and just make them real blocky and give them hard lines around it, because then it's going to look like a jack-o'-lantern and you're not going to be very happy with it. So if you're drawing a mouth, again, you want a reference. So you want to be looking in the mirror at your mouth or at a photograph or at someone else. And same as when we did mouth before, I'm going to start with kind of a line of symmetry to try to figure out where the middle is, because it's going to be fairly symmetrical if the person's facing forward. Again, all of these are someone who is facing forward straight ahead. Obviously, if somebody turns their head, it's going to change the angles. But I started with a line of symmetry and kind of putting in that, like, little kid drawing a seagull shape for the top. But again, look at the shape of whoever's lips you're drawing. And they're going to be a little bit wider if they're smiling. So there's the top lip. I'm going to come down and, again, really lightly. And how they're smiling, how much they're smiling is going to, sometimes you might be able to see some of their gums. Sometimes you might be able to see the bottom teeth and the top teeth. It depends. And that bottom lip is probably going to be a little wider than the top lip, but it's going to stretch out a little more at the sides. And in general, if you're drawing a face, the edges of the lips, and you can try it on yourself, on your own face, but if you draw a line straight down to find the corner of the lips, and I went straight up, try this on yourself right now. If you draw a line from the corners of the lips and you go straight up, you should be about the middle of the pupil of the eye. So again, I'm going to draw my lines really lightly because I want to be able to move them if I make mistakes, because we all do need to move things around and change them a little bit. So you always want to kind of start things lightly as you're placing them, and then later on you can always you're not really going to darken the lines, but you're going to shade in around them. So there I have like the mouth that's open a little bit. And then you want to look at kind of like doing a contour drawing where you're really looking at the shapes and the edge lines. So for the teeth, start at the bottom with that kind of bottom edge of the shape of whoever's teeth you're looking at. Everyone's teeth are going to look a little different. And then, put in that kind of contour line on the bottom of what the edge shape looks like. So I'm just drawing that bottom edge. I'm just going to do the picture I'm looking at. I'm only seeing the top teeth. So I'm just going to do that. Don't put really heavy lines in between. Instead, just, start at the bottom where you did that bottom edge, and you can go up a teeny bit. If you can see the gums, you can add that a little bit, but you want to keep those lines really, really light, and maybe don't even take them all the way up. And then you can go back and shade the lips a little bit, because the lips are going to be darker than the teeth. But in reality, the teeth are probably not going to be like super like the white of the paper white, because they're inside your mouth. So there's a little bit of a shadow from your lip on your teeth. So like if I was painting teeth, I wouldn't make them with just like a tube of white paint. I would like tone it down a little bit and make it a little bit more neutral. So there's usually a little bit of value on the teeth. They're not necessarily like white. And then I'm going to add some value to the bottom lip. Again, there's going to be a little highlight in this area because that's the part of the bottom lip that kind of stands out the most. So I'm going to make the bottom part of the bottom lip a little darker. And this is the kind of quick version. You know, you can find a million tutorials online on like how to draw a mouth, how to draw lips, how to draw someone smiling, of varying lengths. Some of them are much longer and more detailed. That's sort of a quickie version. So I'm using my blending stump, or if you don't have your blending stump, you can use a Q-tip. Or you don't have to blend, but sometimes it's a little easier to blend to start to get it smooth and then add more over top. And then for that area behind the teeth, you're going to see a little bit of the inside of the mouth, and that's going to be probably the darkest part, like behind the teeth. So I'm just going to go around that contour, but I'm not going to take that dark all the way up here and make these lines dark, because then the teeth just look kind of like a Halloween jack-o'-lantern. So that's the gist of the idea, and then you can kind of go back and, you know, add some more, a little bit of the kind of lines, like a little bit of the texture. So when I'm adding more value over top, I'm going to go this direction to go with this kind of cylindrical form of the lip and get a little bit of that texture of the lip in there. And it also is going to make it look more 3D or more volumetric if I make those lines like curve around with the shape of it. The bottom part of the bottom lip is going to be a little darker because it's kind of in shadow. And then the top lip is generally darker than the bottom because of the way it kind of sits. You can get a little bit of that texture in there maybe. And then look at your image that you're working from and see, you know, where there are darker areas and lighter areas. But again, you're not going to have like a really dark outline around it unless it's somebody who's wearing like dark lip liner. And then if you can see some of the gum in there, the way that they're smiling, you can kind of add that in, but that's probably going to be a little bit lighter. And I might even, not a dark value, but I might put a teeny bit of value in the teeth because they're inside the mouth, so they're, you know, a little bit in the shadow of the mouth. So maybe like a really pale value in there to tone them down a little bit so they don't kind of stand out quite as much. And then you can go back and add, you know, erase your lines of symmetry that you put in there to start. Kind of add that divot around above, and just going to use some of the value that's already on my blending stump to get some of the values of the face in there.